Tough questions.
Welcome to our segment where we talk about the tough questions of the Bible or religion. Today we want to answer the question, do missionaries help or harm other cultures? We will deal with that question in this week's segment, and some people are against missionaries because they believe they westernize cultures. And changing other cultures is considered harmful, and it's something that we should not do. Historically, some missionaries have united the gospel with their own culture, spreading a mix of the gospel and Western civilization. This practice is sad because these missionaries were insensitive to what was good in the native cultures that they were evangelizing. For instance, here's a story that explains what I'm talking about. There was a missionary who was traveling to a remote area, and he was taking a cab, and he's on a dusty road from a small airport, and he strikes up a conversation with the cab driver, and he asked him if he was a Christian, and the driver said, "No, I'm not a Christian, but I know all about you Christians." And he said, "You Christians all wear pants." And the guy was like, "What are you talking about?" And in that culture, basically everybody wore robes. However, according to this cab driver, the missionaries there thought they looked too much like skirts and too feminine. So they convinced the converts to Christianity to wear pants. And so the non-Christians in that region were nicknamed the Church of the Pants. And so they stood out wherever they went, and people would go, "Oh, that must be a Christian." And, forgetting that Jesus probably wore robes. And so these missionaries had gone into this culture and had evaluated that local culture against Western standards. And as a result, in my opinion, they damaged that culture and did nothing to enhance their Christian witness. But I want to, on the other hand, there are examples of missionaries that recognized cultural diversity, and they were fantastic in just preaching the gospel and yet not changing the culture. This isn't surprising, as most missionaries often live alongside native people and learn their language and translate the Bible into their language and pick up their customs. Many missionaries courageously identified with native peoples. For example, Samuel Worcester was imprisoned for defending Cherokee rights in Georgia. And we have many, many stories like that. And so I want to make sure it's clear that mission work is biblical. It needs to be done. Jesus commands all people to share the gospel and make disciples of all nations. We call it the Great Commission. In Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20 reads, Jesus came and told his disciples, "I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I've given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." So we have to go in and tell people about Jesus, and yet we shouldn't change people's culture. That there's nothing wrong with that part of their culture. So what we say is this, that Christian missionaries are distinct from Western missionaries, because Christian missionaries are just preaching the gospel, and their standard is simply Christ. They're not evaluating the culture they're in against the Western culture. They're just telling people about Christ. Now, I do want to say that doesn't mean that Christian missionaries at times should not change or seek to change cultures. For example, historically, there have been cultures of human sacrifice. There's been cultures of widow burning, oppression, and things like that should be changed through the gospel. And so There are times you come across something that's just so sinful that you got to change that, when it's sin. But if it's got nothing to do with sin, it's just a custom of that culture, you should leave it alone. And I want to make sure that we say this, that all developed nations, which includes America, and all third world nations, we all fall short of biblical standards, and we need the gospel. Therefore, we shouldn't fear or ignore all criticism of missionary methods. However, this criticism should be informed and fair, and sometimes if we stereotype all missionaries, we're not being informed and we're not being fair. We're just wrong on that. So basically, missionaries should not attempt to fix different cultures as their culture is not broken. Instead, a faithful biblical missionary today should focus on helping the lost come to know Jesus and providing any resources those people may need, such as medicine, food, or housing. I hope you stay tuned to future Tough Question segments where we explore topics from the Bible.
Tough questions.